The Galactic Council chamber was filled with worried voices. Representatives from over 200 different alien species sat in their designated areas, all speaking at once. The massive room, built inside a space station that orbited a neutral planet, had never seen such chaos before. For thousands of years, the Council had maintained peace across the galaxy through diplomacy and trade. War was something from ancient history, a dark time that civilized species had moved past. But now, war had returned. Ambassador Kelvin stood in the center of the chamber, his four eyes reflecting the dim lights above. He was a Xanthari, a species that looked like tall, thin beings covered in smooth gray skin. His people had been peaceful traders for millennia, but now they were dying. His homeworld was under attack and millions of his kind had already perished. The enemy was called the Skorath. They had appeared from beyond the edge of the galaxy 6 months ago, and nobody knew where they came from. The Skorath were a hive mind species, millions of beings controlled by a single consciousness. They looked like massive insects with hard shells and sharp claws. Their ships were biological, grown rather than built, and they traveled in swarms of thousands. The Skorath did not want to talk. They did not want to trade. They only wanted to consume and destroy everything in their path. 3 council worlds had gone completely silent in the first month. 12 more were currently under siege. The Xanthari homeworld was next, and Kelvin knew his people could not hold out much longer. Council leader Tharn raised his crystalline hand, and the chamber slowly fell silent. Tharn was a being made entirely of living crystal, standing 3 times taller than most species. His kind lived for thousands of years and were considered the wisest in the galaxy. Ambassador Kelvin? Tharn's voice resonated through the chamber like wind chimes. You have requested this emergency session. Please state your petition. Kelvin took a deep breath, his translator device humming to convert his clicking speech into words the others could understand. Honored Council, my people are dying. We have tried to fight the Skorath with our defense forces, but we are losing. Our weapons are old, designed for ceremonies and parades, not real combat. We need help. We need warriors. A wave of uncomfortable murmurs spread through the chamber. The word warriors had not been spoken in council halls for generations. Most species had evolved beyond violence thousands of years ago. Their militaries existed only in history books. Representative Voss, a small blue creature with multiple tentacles, spoke up. We have no warriors, Ambassador. The Council maintains peace through understanding, not violence. Perhaps we can negotiate with the Skorath. They do not negotiate. Kelvin's voice cracked with emotion. We have tried. They ignore all communication. They simply attack and consume. If we do nothing, they will destroy every world in Council space. The chamber erupted in arguments again. Some representatives insisted on trying diplomacy. Others suggested building new weapons, but that would take years. The Skorath would conquer dozens more worlds by then. Tharn raised his hand again for silence. There may be one option, he said slowly. 3 months ago, our exploration division discovered a new species. They are currently under quarantine protocol, as their planet has been designated a Class 12 death world. The chamber fell completely silent. Death worlds were rare and terrifying places. These were planets where everything seemed designed to kill living things. Extreme weather, deadly predators, dangerous diseases, and hostile environments. Most species came from gentle worlds where life was easy. The idea of a species surviving on a death world was both fascinating and frightening. A Class 12? Someone whispered. That is the highest danger rating possible. Tharn nodded. Yes, the planet is called Earth. It orbits a yellow star in a distant arm of the galaxy. When we found it, we could hardly believe a civilization had emerged there. The planet experiences massive storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and temperature extremes. The native life forms are aggressive predators. Even the microscopic organisms wage constant war inside their bodies. How could any species survive there? Asked another representative. They did not just survive, Tharn continued. They became the dominant species. They call themselves humans. And they have spent their entire history fighting their environment, fighting their predators, and fighting each other. They have been at war almost constantly for 10,000 years. Kelvin felt something stir inside him. Hope, perhaps. These humans, can they fight the Skorath? We do not know, Tharn admitted. They are technologically advanced, but not as much as Council species. However, they possess something we have lost. They understand combat. They train for it. They have weapons designed to kill, not just for display. They might be the warriors you seek. Voss made a sound of disgust. You cannot be serious. We would invite violent Deathworlders to council space? They could be as dangerous as the Skorath. Or they could be our salvation, Kelvin said firmly. I request permission to travel to Earth and make contact with these humans. My people are dying. I will take any chance to save them. The council debated for hours. Some argued it was too dangerous to involve a species they knew nothing about. Others pointed out that they had no other options. Finally, they took a vote. It was close, but the decision was made. Ambassador Kelvin would travel to Earth and request help from the humans. As the chamber emptied, Kelvin stood alone, looking at the star map displayed on the wall. Earth was marked with a red symbol, indicating a quarantined world. He traced his finger along the route he would take. It would take 3 days to reach the Sol system. An aide approached him. Ambassador, are you certain about this? The reports say humans are extremely violent. They have thousands of weapons capable of destroying entire cities. They fight wars over resources, land, and even ideas. Kelvin turned to face his aide. I know. I have read all the reports. Humans are dangerous, aggressive, and unpredictable. But they are also the only species in the galaxy that still knows how to wage war. The Skorath are at our doorstep. If we do nothing, we die. If we ask for help from these Deathworlders, we might die. But at least we have a chance. The aide nodded slowly, understanding the impossible choice before them. Kelvin boarded his ship that night, a small diplomatic vessel designed for long-range travel. As he set the coordinates for Earth, he wondered what these humans would be like. Would they help? Would they even listen? Or would they see the Council as weak prey, just like the Skorath did? The ship jumped to faster than light speed and the stars blurred around him. Somewhere ahead, on a deadly planet orbiting a yellow star, lived beings who had spent their existence learning to survive and fight. Kelvin could only hope that when faced with the suffering of others, these warriors would choose to protect rather than destroy. His homeworld had perhaps 2 weeks before the Skorath overwhelmed the last defenses. 2 weeks to convince a species of Deathworlders to save people they had never met. It seemed impossible. But then again, humans had survived the impossible every day of their existence. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Endeavour, watching the stars through the massive view screen. He had been in space for 10 years, ever since humanity had developed faster-than-light travel. Most of that time had been spent exploring empty systems and cataloging planets that nobody would visit for decades. 3 months ago, everything changed. An alien probe had entered the Sol system, scanned Earth, and then jumped away before anyone could intercept it. The world governments had panicked at first, expecting an invasion. But when nothing happened for weeks, people started to relax. Now it seemed the aliens were back. Captain, we have an incoming vessel, announced Lieutenant Sophie Blake from her station. She was young, only 25, but she was the best communications officer in the fleet. It is broadcasting on multiple frequencies. The computer is trying to translate. Put it on screen, Jake ordered. The view screen changed to show a small alien ship approaching Earth orbit. It was elegant, with smooth curves and a pale blue color. Nothing like the aggressive military vessels humanity had imagined. Translation complete, Sophie said. They are requesting permission to speak with whoever is in charge of Earth's defense. That would be Admiral Peterson back on Earth, Jake said. But we can talk to them first. Open a channel. The screen flickered, and suddenly Jake was face to face with his first alien. It was tall and thin, with smooth gray skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. The being wore simple robes and looked exhausted. Greetings, the alien said, its voice coming through surprisingly clear. I am Ambassador Kelvin of the Zenthari people. I come from the Galactic Council with an urgent request. Jake kept his expression neutral, even though his heart was racing. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. What kind of request? Kelvin explained everything. The Galactic Council. The peace that had lasted for thousands of years, and then the arrival of the Skorath. He described the attacks, the fallen worlds, and the desperate need for help. His voice grew more strained as he spoke about his dying homeworld. When he finished, the bridge was completely silent. Jake looked around at his crew. Sophie had tears in her eyes. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Ben Carter, looked angry. Everyone seemed shocked by what they had heard. Ambassador, Jake said carefully. Why come to Earth? You said there are 200 species in the Council. Why ask us? Kelvin's 4 eyes focused on Jake. Because you are the only ones who still know how to fight. The Council has been at peace for so long that we have forgotten war. Our weapons are outdated, our soldiers untrained. We need warriors, and according to our research, humans are warriors. Class 12. Deathworld, Sophie whispered. They know what Earth is like. Jake nodded slowly. He had heard the classification before. In the data packet that came with the alien probe, Earth was considered one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. Most alien species came from gentle worlds where survival was easy. They could not imagine living on a planet with hurricanes, earthquakes, predators, and diseases. I need to consult with my superiors, Jake said. But Ambassador, I can tell you right now that humans do not abandon people who ask for help. If your people are in danger, we will do something about it. I must warn you, Kelvin said. The Skorath are not like anything you have faced before. They are ruthless, they are many, and they are technologically advanced. This will not be an easy fight. Jake smiled, though there was no humor in it. Ambassador, humans have been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and 2 world wars that nearly destroyed our civilization. We have gotten very good at fighting. I think we can handle some bugs. The communication ended and Jake immediately contacted Earth Command. Within an hour, he was speaking directly with Admiral Peterson and the heads of the world governments. This is an incredible opportunity, said the Secretary General of the United Nations. First contact with alien life, and they need our help. It is also extremely dangerous, Admiral Peterson countered. We would be going into a war we know nothing about. In space we have never traveled, against an enemy we have never seen. With respect, Admiral, Jake said, those aliens out there are facing extinction. They came to us because they have nowhere else to turn. What does it say about humanity if we refuse to help? The Admiral was quiet for a moment, then nodded. You are right, Captain. We will authorize a military expedition, but this needs to be done carefully. We cannot send our entire fleet on a mission that might fail. Within 48 hours, the decision was made. 3 ships would go. The battle cruiser Valiant, the carrier Liberty, and the support vessel Guardian. Together, they would carry 2,000 Marines, pilots, engineers, and medical personnel. The call for volunteers went out, and the response was overwhelming. Within the first hour, over 5,000 people had signed up. Command had to turn people away. Everyone wanted to be part of humanity's first trip to the stars as warriors rather than explorers. Colonel Danny Wright was chosen to lead the ground forces. He was 42 years old and had served in multiple conflicts across Earth. He was tough, experienced, and exactly the kind of leader the Marines needed. When Jake met him for the first time, Danny gripped his hand firmly. So we are going to fight aliens, Danny said with a slight grin. Never thought I would say that sentence. Never thought I would either, Jake admitted. But here we are. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes would lead the fighter squadrons from the Liberty. She was one of the best pilots in the fleet, with reflexes that bordered on superhuman. When she heard about the mission, she had immediately volunteered. Commander Greg Palmer would handle overall military strategy aboard the Valiant. He was a quiet man, who spent most of his time studying historical battles and theoretical combat scenarios. Now he would get to put that knowledge to use in a real war. Ambassador Kelvin waited in orbit while the human fleet prepared. Jake visited him once before they departed, wanting to understand more about what they would face. Tell me about the Skorath, Jake said. Everything you know. Kelvin brought up holographic displays showing the enemy. The Skorath looked like nightmares. Massive insect creatures with hard shells and multiple limbs. Their ships were organic, grown from some kind of biological material. They attacked in swarms, overwhelming defenses through sheer numbers. They are a hive mind, Kelvin explained. Millions of individuals controlled by a single consciousness. Kill one and it does not matter. They simply send more. They do not feel fear. They do not retreat, and they do not stop until everything is consumed. Every enemy has a weakness, Jake said. What is theirs? We do not know, Kelvin admitted. We have never been able to study them long enough. They attack too quickly, destroy too completely, but there must be something. Perhaps you will find it. On the day of departure, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Endeavour, watching as the 3 warships moved into formation. The Valiant was massive, bristling with weapons and armor. The Liberty was sleek, designed to launch and recover fighters quickly. The Guardian was smaller but packed with supplies and medical facilities. Sophie joined him, looking nervous but excited. "Do you think we can really win this?" "I do not know," Jake said honestly. "But we have to try. Those people out there need help, and we are the only ones who can give it to them." "Why us, though?" Sophie asked. "Why did we become the ones who fight?" Jake thought about that for a moment. "Because Earth never gave us a choice. Every day of human history has been a fight to survive. We fought the cold, the heat, the predators, the diseases, and each other. We learned to be warriors because anything less meant death. Now someone needs warriors, and here we are." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, following Ambassador Kelvin's ship toward the Zenthari homeworld. They had no idea what they would find there, or if they would even survive the first battle. But they were going anyway, because that was what humans did. Someone asked for help and humans responded. It was time to show the galaxy what Deathworlders could do. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zenthari system, and what they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Captain Jake Morrison had seen combat before, had witnessed destruction and death, but nothing had prepared him for this sight. Zenthari Prime hung in space like a dying jewel. The planet had once been beautiful, covered in crystalline cities that reflected sunlight in thousands of colors. Now massive sections of the surface were dark and burning. Surrounding the planet was a swarm of alien ships so thick that they blocked out the stars. "Good God," Sophie whispered from her station. "There must be thousands of them." The Skorath vessels looked nothing like human ships. They were biological, grown rather than built, with shapes that hurt to look at. Each one resembled a massive insect, with chitinous armor and multiple limbs that served as weapons. They moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually coordinated by the hive mind controlling them. "Tactical report," Jake ordered, forcing himself to focus. Lieutenant Ben Carter worked his console quickly. "I am reading approximately 3,000 Skorath vessels in orbit. They range from small fighters to massive capital ships. The Zenthari defense fleet has been reduced to less than 50 ships, and they are not going to last much longer." Ambassador Kelvin's voice came through the communication system. "Captain Morrison, my homeworld is dying. Please, you must help us." "All hands, battle stations," Jake announced. The alarm klaxons began wailing throughout the ship. "Lisa, launch all fighters. Greg, power up all weapons. Danny, get your Marines ready for boarding actions." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for combat in Earth's orbit, fighting simulated battles against other human ships. Now they would find out if that training meant anything against an alien enemy. The Skorath noticed them immediately. A portion of the swarm, perhaps 300 ships, detached from the main force and began moving toward the human fleet. They came fast, accelerating at speeds that should have crushed any biological crew. But the Skorath were not normal biology. They were something else entirely. "Incoming hostiles," Ben reported. "They will be in weapons range in 90 seconds. All batteries prepare to fire." Greg Palmer's voice came from the Valiant. "Target the lead ships. Show them what human weapons can do." The range counter on Jake's display ticked down. 80 seconds. 60 seconds. 40 seconds. The Skorath ships grew larger on the screen, their grotesque forms becoming clearer. Jake could see pulsing organic tissue beneath the armor, could see the weapon ports opening like mouths. 20 seconds, Ben said. 15, 10, fire, Greg ordered. The Valiant's railguns opened up first. These were kinetic weapons, firing solid tungsten slugs at incredible speeds. The rounds punched through space at a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit the Skorath ships, the results were devastating. The first 3 enemy vessels simply exploded, unable to withstand the kinetic energy. The Liberty and Guardian added their weapons to the barrage. Missiles streaked out, each one carrying enough explosive power to level a city block. Laser batteries cut through space, burning holes in the biological armor. The Skorath formation broke apart as ships were destroyed or disabled, but there were so many of them. For every ship the humans destroyed, 2 more moved up to take its place. The Skorath returned fire with organic projectiles, masses of acidic material that ate through shields and armor like they were paper. Taking hits on the starboard side, someone reported from the Guardian. "Hull breach on deck 7. They are trying to board us," another voice shouted. Colonel Danny Wright was already moving with his Marines toward the breach points. They wore heavy combat armor, carried plasma rifles and blade weapons. The corridors of the Guardian echoed with the sound of running boots. Set up defensive positions, Danny ordered. Nothing gets past this point. The first Skorath burst through the hull breach seconds later. It was even more nightmarish up close. A creature of chitin and rage with multiple limbs ending in razor-sharp claws. It moved fast. Faster than anything that size should be able to move. Danny's Marines opened fire. The plasma rifles, originally designed for mining operations back on Earth, proved devastatingly effective against biological targets. The first Skorath collapsed, its armor melting under the intense heat. But more came through behind it. A tide of alien monsters trying to overwhelm the defenders. "Hold the line," Danny shouted, firing his own weapon in controlled bursts. "Do not let them through." The battle in the corridor was brutal and close. When the Skorath got past the rifle fire, the Marines switched to combat knives and axes. Hand-to-hand fighting in zero gravity was chaotic and desperate. Blood and other fluids floated through the air. Screams and alien shrieks echoed off the metal walls. But the Marines held. They had trained for this, had drilled boarding actions 1,000 times. More importantly, they were fighting to protect their ship and their friends. That gave them an edge the Skorath could not match. Outside, the space battle raged on. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes led her fighter squadrons into the chaos. The human fighters were small and fast, designed for atmospheric combat but adapted for space. They darted between the massive Skorath ships, firing missiles and cannon rounds at vulnerable points. Blue Squadron hit their flanks, Lisa ordered over the radio. Red Squadron, cover the Valiant's lower section. Gold Squadron, stay with me. The pilots responded instantly, breaking into their assigned formations. Human pilots had learned to fly in Earth's complicated atmosphere, dealing with weather, gravity, and other aircraft trying to kill them. Space combat was actually simpler in some ways, with no air resistance or gravity to worry about. But the Skorath had numbers on their side. For every enemy fighter the humans destroyed, 5 more appeared. Lisa's squadron lost 2 pilots in the first 10 minutes. Good people, friends she had trained with for years. Gone in flashes of fire and debris. Gold Leader, "We have incoming on your 6, someone warned. Lisa threw her fighter into a spin, narrowly avoiding a burst of organic projectiles. She rolled, dove, and came up behind the Skorath fighter that had been chasing her. Her thumb pressed the firing button, and her cannon rounds tore the alien ship apart. "Thanks for the warning, Gold 3, she said. "Stay sharp out there." The battle continued for hours. The human fleet took heavy damage but refused to retreat. The Valiant lost its forward shields and had fires burning on 3 decks. The Liberty took a direct hit that destroyed half its fighter bays. The Guardian was barely holding together with hull breaches on multiple levels, but they were winning. Slowly, impossibly, they were winning. Jake watched the tactical display and realized something important. The Skorath ships were not coordinating as well as they had at the start of the battle. Their movements were becoming less precise, their attacks less organized. "Ben, are you seeing this?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir," the tactical officer replied. "It looks like the hive mind is having trouble managing all these ships at once. Maybe we are overwhelming it. Or maybe there is a command ship," Jake said suddenly. "Something controlling the others. If we take it out, the whole swarm falls apart." "That is a big maybe," Sophie pointed out. "But it is all we have," Jake said. He opened a channel to Lisa. "Gold Leader, do you see anything that looks like a command ship? Something the others are protecting?" Lisa scanned her tactical display while dodging another wave of enemy fire. Then she saw it. Deep in the Skorath formation, surrounded by dozens of smaller vessels, was a ship 3 times larger than the others. It pulsed with an eerie light, and all the other Skorath ships seemed to orient toward it. "I see it, Captain," Lisa said, "but getting to it is going to be suicide." "Then I guess it is a good thing humans are crazy," Jake replied. "Take your best pilots and hit that ship with everything you have got." Lisa felt her heart pounding. This was insane. But insane was what humans did best. "Gold Squadron, Red Squadron, form up on me. We are going right down their throats." 20 human fighters broke formation and dove toward the command ship. The Skorath tried to intercept, throwing everything they had at the attacking fighters. 3 human ships exploded in the first 30 seconds. 2 more were hit and had to break off, trailing smoke and sparks. But 15 fighters made it through. They came at the command ship from all directions, firing everything they had. Missiles, cannon rounds, and laser fire converged on the massive vessel. Its organic armor tried to regenerate, but there was too much damage coming too fast. Lisa fired her last 2 missiles directly into what looked like a vital area, then pulled up hard to avoid the debris. The command ship shuddered, then exploded in a massive burst of green fire. Instantly, the entire Skorath swarm faltered. Ships that had been attacking in perfect coordination suddenly moved randomly, confused. Some even started attacking each other. The hive mind had been disrupted. All ships pressed the attack. Greg Palmer ordered from the Valiant, "Do not give them time to recover." The human fleet, despite its damage, surged forward. With the Skorath in disarray, the battle turned into a slaughter. Enemy ships were destroyed by the dozens. The survivors broke formation and fled, jumping away to faster-than-light speed in random directions. Within 20 minutes, the battle was over. Jake sat back in his captain's chair. The Galactic Council station orbited the neutral world of Axios, a place chosen specifically because no species could claim it as their territory. The massive structure housed representatives from 200 different civilizations, each with their own chambers and cultural requirements. Today, all of them gathered in the main amphitheater for an emergency session. The subject of that session stood calmly in the center of the room. Captain Jake Morrison, Colonel Danny Wright, and Ambassador Helen Price represented humanity. They wore their dress uniforms, clean and formal, though anyone could see the weariness in their eyes. The battle at Xanthari Prime had been only 3 days ago, and they had spent that time helping with rescue operations. Helen Price was Earth's most experienced diplomat, a woman in her 50s who had negotiated peace treaties between warring nations back home. Now she faced something far more challenging: convincing 200 alien species that humanity could be trusted. Council leader Tharn called the session to order, his crystalline form reflecting light across the amphitheater. "We are here to discuss the status of the human species. They have proven themselves capable warriors, but the question remains: what place do they have in council space?" Representative Voss immediately stood up. The small blue alien's tentacles waved in agitation. "They are too dangerous. Have you seen the battle reports? They use kinetic weapons that destroy everything in their path. They have nuclear devices on their ships, weapons that could sterilize entire planets. They engage in hand-to-hand combat with bladed weapons like savages." Several other representatives murmured in agreement. The footage from the battle had shocked many council members. They had expected a military intervention, but what they saw was something more primal. Humans fighting with a ferocity that seemed almost uncontrollable. Ambassador Kelvin rose to speak. "Representative Voss, those same savages saved my world. Without them, Xanthari Prime would be dead. Every single one of my people owes their life to humanity. One battle does not prove they can be trusted," another representative argued. "What happens when there is no common enemy? What happens when they decide they want council resources or territory? We have invited wolves into our home." Helen stepped forward, her voice clear and confident. "Members of the council, I understand your concerns. Yes, humanity comes from a violent background. Our world has forced us to fight every single day just to survive. We have fought wars against each other, terrible wars that have killed millions. But those same experiences have taught us something important. We know the cost of violence. We know the value of peace. And we know that strength means nothing if you do not use it to protect those who cannot protect themselves." "Pretty words," Voss said dismissively. "But words are easy. Actions matter more." Jake Morrison spoke up for the first time. "Then judge us by our actions. We came when you called. We fought for people we had never met. We risked our lives to save a world that was not our own. What action would satisfy you?" "The Skorath are still out there," Danny added. "They destroyed 3 of your worlds completely. They have 12 more under siege right now. Give us the coordinates and we will deal with them." The amphitheater erupted in shocked voices. Several representatives looked horrified. "You propose genocide?" someone gasped. "I propose defense," Jake replied firmly. "The Skorath are not a species that wants to coexist. They are a plague that consumes everything. Someone has to stop them, and it seems like you have all forgotten how." "Because we are civilized," Voss shouted. "We do not solve problems with violence anymore. That is barbarism." "No," Helen said quietly. "That is survival. You have spent so long at peace that you have forgotten the fundamental truth of the universe. Sometimes there are threats that cannot be negotiated with. Sometimes you must fight or die. We have not forgotten that truth because Earth never let us forget it." Tharn raised his hand for silence. The argument stopped, though the tension remained. "The human speaks correctly. The Skorath will not negotiate. They will not stop. And the Council lacks the military capability to mount an effective defense. We have three choices: fight back, evacuate the threatened worlds, or wait for extinction. Evacuation would take months, Kelvin pointed out. The Skorath will not give us that much time. And where would we evacuate to? Another representative asked. The Skorath are expanding in all directions. Eventually they will reach every Council world, which leaves fighting back, Tharn said. But we cannot fight, not effectively. We need help. He paused, and his next words seemed to carry great weight. I propose the formation of a joint task force. Human military expertise combined with Council resources, technology, and intelligence. You would give these Deathworlders access to our entire defensive network? Voss protested. Access to our most secure systems and classified information? I would give the galaxy a chance to survive, Tharn replied. Ambassador Price, if we approve this proposal, would humanity be willing to lead such a task force? Helen looked at Jake and Danny. They both nodded. She turned back to the Council. We would. But understand this. If you ask us to fight, we will fight our way. We will use tactics and weapons that may seem brutal to you. We will make decisions that may upset you. War is not pretty and it is not civilized. If you want us to win, you need to let us do what we do best. And what happens after the war? Voss demanded. When the Skorath are defeated, what is to stop humanity from turning their weapons on us? Danny laughed, though there was no humor in the sound. Representative, do you know how many times in human history we could have destroyed ourselves? We have had weapons capable of ending all life on Earth for over a century. We chose not to use them. We fight wars with rules, we take prisoners, we help rebuild after conflicts end. We are warriors, yes, but we are not monsters. Besides, Jake added, we are one species against 200. If we ever did turn hostile, which we would not, you could overwhelm us easily. We are not stupid enough to make enemies of the entire galaxy. The Council debated for hours. Some representatives saw humanity as saviors who had already proven themselves. Others viewed them as dangerous variables who could not be controlled. The arguments went back and forth, covering everything from military strategy to moral philosophy. Finally, Tharn called for a vote. The amphitheater fell silent as each representative indicated their choice. The results appeared on the central display, numbers climbing slowly as votes were counted. The final tally was close, but it passed. Humanity would be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council and would lead a joint military task force against the Skorath. As the session ended, representatives filed out of the amphitheater. Some approached the human delegation with words of gratitude and support. Others avoided them entirely, clearly uncomfortable with the decision. Kelvin approached with another Zinthari, who was introduced as his government's military liaison. Captain Morrison, Colonel Wright, we have prepared detailed information on the 12 worlds currently under attack. Strategic positions, Skorath numbers, civilian population estimates. When can your forces move? We need more ships first, Jake said. 3 vessels are not enough for this kind of campaign. I have already sent word to Earth. They are preparing a larger fleet, but it will take time. How much time? The military liaison asked urgently. 2 weeks, Danny said. Maybe less if they push hard. In the meantime, we can coordinate with what Council forces still exist. Start planning operations, identifying priority targets. Helen pulled Jake and Danny aside as the others talked logistics. This is bigger than one battle now. We are committing Earth to a full-scale war in another part of the galaxy. Are we ready for this? Probably not, Jake admitted. But when has that ever stopped humanity? Someone needs help, and we are the only ones who can provide it. We will figure out the rest as we go. Just like always, Danny added with a tired smile. Over the next few days, the human delegation worked closely with Council military advisors. It quickly became clear that most Council species had no real understanding of modern warfare. Their weapons were outdated, their tactics obsolete. They had been at peace for so long that they had forgotten how to fight effectively. Jake found himself teaching basic combat strategy to species that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Danny trained Council soldiers who had never seen real combat. Helen negotiated supply agreements and political arrangements to support the coming campaign. News of Earth's commitment spread quickly. Some species sent messages of support and gratitude. Others remained silent, withholding judgment until they saw results. A few openly protested, arguing that humanity's involvement would make things worse. On the 7th day, more human ships arrived. Not the 3 vessels that had fought at Zenthari Prime, but 10 more warships, including a massive dreadnought called Titan. The United Earth Defense Force was committing serious resources to this fight. But something else happened that nobody expected. Other species started appearing, species that the Council had kept under quarantine just like humanity. They were Deathworlders too, survivors from harsh planets who had maintained their warrior cultures. The Kravor came first, large reptilian beings from a high-gravity world of constant volcanic activity. They were natural soldiers, strong and... The Deathworld Alliance grew faster than anyone expected. Within 3 weeks of the first meeting, representatives from 6 different harsh world species had gathered on the Council station. They came from planets that would kill normal species in minutes, places where survival meant fighting every single day. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the newly designated Alliance section of the station, amazed at the variety of beings he saw. The Kravor stood over 2 meters tall, their reptilian scales designed to withstand extreme heat and pressure. The Kithrak moved on 4 arms, their bodies adapted to a world where touching the wrong plant meant death. The Yelene could breathe both air and water, their predator instincts honed by millions of years hunting in 3-dimensional ocean environments. Despite their differences, they all shared something important. They were survivors. They were warriors. And they were ready to fight. Colonel Danny Wright was in the training bay working with a mixed squad of humans and Kravor. The reptilians were incredibly strong, able to carry weapons that would break a human's back. But they were also disciplined and eager to learn human tactics. The key is coordination, Danny explained, showing them a tactical display. We hit them from multiple angles at once. Kravor heavy assault from the front drawing their attention. Human Marines flank from the sides with precision fire. We overwhelm their ability to respond. Tusk, the Kravor commander, studied the display carefully. His species had fought wars on their volcanic world. But those had been simple affairs of strength against strength. Human tactics were more complex, using psychology and misdirection. Your people think like hunters, Tusk observed. Not just killing, but outsmarting. That is because humans were prey before we were predators, Danny said. We had to learn to think our way out of danger. Made us creative. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes worked with Yelene pilots in the flight simulators. The aquatic species had a natural advantage in spatial thinking, able to track movement in 3 dimensions instinctively. Combined with human reflexes and aggression, they made excellent fighter pilots. Your turn, Lisa said to a young Yelene named Coral. Show me what you learned. Coral slipped into the simulator seat, her webbed hands moving over the controls. The simulation began, showing a complex battle scenario with dozens of enemy fighters. Within minutes, Coral had destroyed half the targets using maneuvers that made Lisa dizzy just watching. How did you do that role while tracking 3 different targets? Lisa asked, impressed. In the ocean, everything moves in all directions, Coral explained through her translator. You must watch everything at once or you become food. Space is simpler. Simpler, Lisa repeated with a laugh. I have been flying for 10 years and I still find space combat difficult. Perhaps because you think in 2 dimensions first, Coral suggested. Humans evolved on land, on flat ground. We evolved in water, where up and down matter as much as forward and back. Lisa thought about that. So if we combine your spatial sense with human tactics, we get something better than either alone. Exactly, Coral said, her translator giving the word a musical quality. The Council watched the Alliance train with mixed feelings. Some representatives were grateful, seeing hope for the first time in months. Others were frightened by the sheer martial capability being assembled. These Deathworlders were too good at war, too comfortable with violence. Ambassador Helen Price spent most of her time managing Council relations, trying to smooth over concerns while the warriors prepared for battle. It was exhausting work, dealing with politicians who wanted guarantees she could not give. They want to know what we will do after the war, Helen told Jake during a rare moment alone. They are scared we will become the next threat. We probably would be if we were different people, Jake admitted. But Earth has been through enough wars. We know what they cost. Besides, we have too many problems at home to go conquering the galaxy. Try explaining that to species who have been at peace for thousands of years, Helen said with a tired smile. They do not understand that warriors can want peace. 2. The first real test of the Alliance came at a world called Praxis 7. The Skorath had invaded 2 weeks earlier and were in the process of consuming the planet's resources. The local population, a peaceful species called the Melani, had evacuated to underground shelters but were running out of supplies. The Alliance fleet arrived in force, 20 ships including human, Kravor, and Kithrak vessels. Jake coordinated the overall strategy from the Valiant, while individual commanders handled their units. "All ships, we go in fast and hit them hard," Jake announced. Kravor dreadnoughts take point, absorb their initial fire. Human and Kithrak ships flank and target their larger vessels. Yelene fighters provide cover and reconnaissance. "Understood," Tusk replied from his command ship. Kravor fleet moving to attack position. The battle began with the Kravor ships charging directly at the Skorath formation. The reptilian species favored direct assault, using heavy armor and overwhelming firepower. The Skorath swarmed them, but the Kravor shields held while they pounded the enemy with massive cannons. While the Skorath focused on the Kravor, human and Kithrak ships swept in from the sides. The Kithrak had developed weapons based on their world's natural toxins, biological agents that disrupted Skorath hive communication. Combined with human kinetic weapons, they tore through the enemy formation. In the fighter battle, Lisa led a mixed squadron of humans and Yelene. The coordination was beautiful to watch. Yelene pilots identified targets and predicted movement patterns while human pilots executed aggressive attack runs. They moved like a school of fish, perfectly synchronized despite being different species. Gold Leader, multiple hostiles approaching the planet's surface, Coral reported. They are trying to reach the civilian shelters. "Not on my watch," Lisa replied. "All fighters, form up. We are going down." The fighters dove into the planet's atmosphere, chasing the Skorath landers. The aerial combat was intense, with enemy and friendly ships weaving between clouds and mountains. Lisa destroyed 3 Skorath fighters in rapid succession, while Coral used her 3-dimensional thinking to set up perfect ambushes. On the ground, Danny and his Marines worked alongside Kravor heavy infantry to secure the landing zones. The fighting was brutal, with Skorath ground forces that were even more nightmarish up close, but the combined Deathworlder forces were more than a match for them. "Push forward," Danny shouted, firing his plasma rifle in controlled bursts. "Do not let them regroup." A massive Skorath warrior, easily 3 meters tall, charged at the human position. Before Danny could react, a Kravor soldier named Stone stepped forward and met the charge. The 2 creatures collided with enough force to crack the ground. Stone was bigger, stronger, and he fought with a savagery that matched the aliens. Within seconds, the Skorath lay dead. "Thank you," Danny said. "We fight together," Stone replied simply. "That is what allies do." The battle lasted 6 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Alliance forces fought with a coordination and effectiveness that the Skorath could not match. When the enemy finally retreated, they left behind hundreds of destroyed ships and thousands of dead warriors. The Millenni emerged from their shelters, seeing their world saved by species they had never met. They were gentle beings, flower-like in appearance, who had never hurt anyone in their entire history. Now they were alive because Deathworlders had come to their rescue. One of the Millenni elders approached Jake as he stood on the planet's surface, looking at the battlefield. "Why did you fight for us?" "We are not warriors. We have nothing to offer you," Jake smiled tiredly. "You do not have to be warriors. That is the point. You get to be whatever you want because we will handle the fighting. That is what strong people do. They protect those who cannot protect themselves." Word of the victory at Praxis 7 spread quickly through Council space. More worlds asked for Alliance help. The Deathworlders responded to every call, fighting battle after battle against the Skorath. They retook conquered planets, rescued trapped populations, and slowly pushed the enemy back. But it was not just military success that made the Alliance special. It was watching different species work together, learning from each other. Humans taught the Kravor about combined arms tactics. The Kithrak shared stealth technology. The Yelene helped everyone improve their spatial awareness. They became more than just a military force. They became a family of warriors. Months passed and the war continued. The Alliance grew to include 2 more Deathworld species, the Vorn, insectoid beings from a radioactive planet, and the Drax, silicon-based life forms from a world of constant earthquakes. Each brought their own skills and perspectives. Jake found himself commanding not just humans but a true coalition of different peoples united by common purpose. It was challenging, frustrating at times, but also incredibly rewarding. He watched as bonds formed between species that had been isolated for generations. One evening, Jake gathered the Alliance leadership in the briefing room. Humans Kravor, Kithrak, Yelene, Vorn, and Drax all sat together planning their next operation. 6 months ago, they had not known each other existed. Now they were comrades. "We have won every battle," Jake began. "We have saved dozens of worlds. But the Scorath keep coming." The Deathworld Alliance fleet assembled at the edge of known space, preparing for the most dangerous mission in their history. 70 warships from 6 different species hung in the void, their crews ready for battle. This was the largest military force assembled in Council space for over 1,000 years. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant, looking at the fleet display with a mix of pride and anxiety. Months of fighting together had turned these different species into a true military force. They understood each other's strengths, covered each other's weaknesses, and fought with a unity that surprised even them. "All ships report ready," Lieutenant Sophie Blake announced from her station. "We can jump to the target coordinates on your order." Jake took a deep breath. Beyond that jump point lay the Scorath home cluster, defended by more enemy ships than they had ever faced before. Council intelligence estimated at least 5,000 Scorath vessels protecting their breeding grounds. The Alliance would be outnumbered 70 to 1, but numbers were not everything. The Deathworlders had proven that time and again. "All ship commanders, this is Morrison," Jake broadcast to the fleet. "Beyond this jump is the Scorath home. This is what we have been fighting toward for months. Every battle, every sacrifice, every loss has led us here. Today we end this war. Today we show the galaxy what happens when peaceful people are threatened and Deathworlders respond. For every world they destroyed, for every life they took, we make them pay. All ships jump in 30 seconds. Around the fleet, crews prepared for combat. In the Titan's fighter bays, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes checked her fighter one last time. Her squadron was a mix of humans and Yelene, the best pilots in the fleet. They would be critical in the chaos to come. "Nervous?" asked Coral, her Yelene wingmate. "Terrified," Lisa admitted. "But that has never stopped me before." "Good," Coral said with what might have been a smile. "Fear keeps you alert, makes you survive." On the Kravor dreadnought Stonebreaker, Commander Tusk addressed his warriors. The massive reptilian soldiers listened in silence as their leader spoke of honor, duty, and the chance to end a threat to the entire galaxy. They would lead the first assault, drawing the enemy's attention with their heavy armor and overwhelming firepower. The Kithrak stealth ships prepared to slip past the main battle, carrying teams of commandos who would sabotage Scorath facilities from within. Colonel Danny Wright led the human contingent, working alongside Kithrak warriors who moved like shadows. Their mission was crucial: find and destroy the Queen Chambers where new Scorath were being bred. 15 seconds to jump, Sophie announced. Jake gripped his command chair. Everything they had fought for came down to the next few hours. Win and the Scorath threat ended forever. Lose and the galaxy would fall to the hive. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Jump. Space twisted around them, and 70 ships crossed hundreds of light years in an instant. When reality stabilized, they found themselves at the edge of the Scorath home cluster. What they saw was a nightmare made real. The cluster consisted of dozens of asteroids and dead planets, all connected by organic structures that pulsed with sick light. Scorath ships swarmed between them like ants around a hive. And at the center, visible even from this distance, was something massive, a living structure the size of a moon covered in biological factories producing more Scorath warriors. "Good God," someone whispered. "All ships. Battle formation," Jake ordered, pushing down his own fear. "Kravor fleet, advance. Everyone else, support positions. Fighters, launch now." The Kravor dreadnoughts moved forward first, their massive engines pushing them toward the swarm. The Scorath reacted immediately, thousands of ships turning to face the new threat. The two forces collided in a storm of fire and destruction. Tusk stood on his bridge, roaring orders as his ship shook from impacts. "All batteries fire! Show these creatures what Kravor strength means." The dreadnoughts lived up to their name, absorbing terrible damage while dealing out even more. Their heavy cannons fired continuously, each shot destroying or crippling an enemy vessel. But the Scorath kept coming, wave after wave crashing against the Cravor shields. While the main battle raged, Lisa led her fighters into the chaos. The space around the cluster was filled with debris, organic structures, and thousands of moving ships. It was the most complicated battle environment imaginable. "Stay in formation," Lisa ordered. "Watch your spacing. Yelene pilots call out threats. Multiple fighters, high angle," Coral reported instantly. 12 ships moving to intercept. "Gold Squadron with me," Lisa said, rolling her fighter toward the threat. "Let us clear a path." The fighter battle was intense and brutal. Human aggression combined with Yelene's spatial sense made them deadly. But the Skorath had numbers. For every enemy fighter destroyed, 2 more appeared. Lisa lost count of how many ships she shot down, focusing only on the next target, the next threat, the next moment of survival. Beneath the main battle, the stealth ships slipped through the defenses. The Kithrak had developed cloaking technology that made their vessels nearly invisible. Combined with human electronic warfare, they reached the outer edges of the cluster undetected. Danny and his team deployed from their stealth ship onto one of the smaller asteroids. The surface was covered in organic material, pulsing and alive. It was like walking on skin, and everyone found it deeply unsettling. "Stay focused," Danny said. "We find the Queen chambers and plant the charges. Swift and silent." The team moved through organic tunnels, following intelligence data toward the breeding areas. They encountered Skorath workers, smaller versions of the warriors designed for building and maintenance. The Deathworlders eliminated them quickly and quietly, using blade weapons to avoid raising alarms. After 20 minutes of careful movement, they reached their target. The chamber was enormous, filled with pods where new Skorath were being grown. Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, all waiting to emerge and join the hive. "Plant the charges," Danny ordered. "We have 5 minutes before the timer starts." While the demolition team worked, Danny stood guard. A Kithrak warrior named Shade moved beside him, her 4 arms holding different weapons. Together they watched the tunnels for any sign of discovery. "Your species is brave," Shade observed quietly. "Humans face death without fear." "We are terrified," Danny corrected. "But we do it anyway." "That is what courage means. Not the absence of fear, but acting despite it." The charges were set. The team retreated back through the tunnels, moving faster now that stealth was less critical. Behind them, the timers counted down to detonation. They reached their stealth ship and lifted off just as the charges exploded. The entire asteroid shook, then began breaking apart. The Queen chamber and all the developing Skorath inside were destroyed in seconds. "One down," Danny reported. "Moving to the next target," but they had been detected. Skorath ships converged on the stealth vessels, forcing them to dodge and weave through the cluster. The Kithrak pilots were skilled, but even they could not avoid everything. One stealth ship took a direct hit and exploded, taking its entire crew with it. In the main battle, the situation was becoming desperate. The Cravor dreadnoughts had destroyed hundreds of enemy ships but were taking terrible damage in return. The Stonebreaker had lost half its shields and was venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. "We cannot hold this position much longer," Tusk reported to Jake. "We need to push forward or retreat." "No retreat," Jake said firmly. "All ships advance. We are going to that central structure." The entire Alliance fleet surged forward, pushing deeper into the cluster. They took horrific losses, ships exploding around them in flowers of fire. But they kept moving, kept fighting, kept pressing toward their goal. Lisa's fighter took a glancing hit that destroyed her left engine. She fought to keep control, her hands moving over the controls with practiced precision. "Gold leader is hit," she reported. "Still in the fight." "Stay with us," Coral said, moving her fighter to cover Lisa's damaged vessel. "We are almost there." The Alliance fleet reached the central structure, that massive moon-sized factory producing Skorath warriors. Up close, it was even more horrifying. Organic architecture covered every surface, with thousands of ports where new ships were being launched constantly. "All ships, concentrate fire on the structure," Jake ordered. "Hit it with everything we have." 70 warships opened fire at once. Kinetic weapons, energy beams, missiles, biological agents, everything in their arsenal poured into the Skorath factory. The organic material tried to regenerate, but the damage came too fast. Sections began to collapse, explode, die. Danny's team reached another Queen chamber and destroyed it. Then another. Each explosion weakened the Skorath's ability to replace their losses. But there were so many chambers, dozens spread throughout the cluster. "Captain, this is taking too long," Danny reported. "We need to hit the core wherever they are producing the queens themselves." "Working on it," Sophie said from her station. "Scanning for the largest biological signatures. Wait, I have something. There at the center of the main structure. Massive energy readings, thousands of life signs." "That is it," Jake said. "The central queen chamber. Take it out and the whole hive collapses." "Then we need to get inside," Danny said. "Can you get us there?" "The Titan can," Jake replied.